Will Sir Keir Starmer's attack campaign come to bite him back? Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of hypocrisy after it emerged he opposed the deportation of a child rapist just weeks after he claimed that Rishi Sunak did not believe child sex abusers should go to prison. See, that's the problem, isn't it? When you start trying to pick holes in other people, we can start looking at holes in you. Fabian Henry was due to be deported to Jamaica in 2020 after being jailed for twice attacking a 17-year-old girl and abducting and raping a girl of 15. But the Daily Mail reported that Starmer had endorsed a letter opposing Henry's and 41 other criminals' deportation to Jamaica. Labour have sought to defend Starmer by saying that whilst he may have opposed Henry's deportation, he was not part of the process that allowed Henry to stay in the UK, which isn't really an argument because Rishi Sunak isn't part of the process that deals with child abusers at all. Nevertheless, it is not a good look for Starmer, who has sought to use his time as the Director of Public Prosecution to paint himself as being tough on crime. So, the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, will Sir Keir Starmer's attack campaign come to bite him back? So joining me to discuss that, Belinda de Lucy, political commentator and former Brexit MEP, Anna McGovern, political commentator, and Sir Vince Cable, former Liberal Democrat leader, and Sam Dowler, political commentator. I'm going to start with you, Vince Cable. What's your thoughts on this campaign, first of all?
Well, it wasn't very smart. And I think it will rebound. I mean, the whole point about attack campaigning is that it's got to have an element of truth. And the idea that Sunak was personally favouring treatment of sex offenders clearly makes no sense. And I don't think anybody would believe it. I mean, if you're going to have a personal campaign, and, unfortunately, that's the way politics often is, concentrate on something relevant. I mean, there clearly is a public mood that Sunak is an extremely rich man who may be out of touch, his wife's tax affairs, his swimming pool, and so on. I mean, if they were going to attack him personally, that's what they should be doing. But this particular one is very misguided. I think it's... most people don't have a clear view of Mr. Starmer, and I think this rather undermines his credibility, and it was a bad move.
Very bad move. Belinda de Lucy, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, Keir Starmer is throwing stones from a very, very thin glass house at the moment. And I think his actions speak much louder than his words. You know, he's a political chameleon. He changes with the wind and says things just because he thinks that's what people want to hear. But let's look at his actions. He campaigned to stop the deportation of 50 criminals, one including this rapist who attacked a 17-year-old girl, as he said, twice and abducted a 15-year-old. Now, he is putting the human rights of a rapist above the victims, public safety. What does this say about him? It's a real insight, a worrying insight as to what we can expect if he becomes Prime Minister.
Well, of course, Belinda, just to stop you there briefly.
He's Mr. Softy for a reason.
Well, yeah, I mean, there were 41, actually, and he signed a letter, so it wasn't really a campaign. But yes, he was supporting it in some respects. Sam Dowler.
I mean, I agree with you, Nana. He wasn't campaigning, and as his job of Director of Public Prosecution, his record speaks for itself. I mean, I've said on record that I don't agree with and I agree with Vince there that I think it was misguided. And also you've got to look at your own house before you start pointing fingers at other people. And I think it was a bit of a foolish move when there is a wealth of other things that they could have attacked Rishi Sunak for. As for Keir Starmer himself, I think he's a stand-up guy. I think he did a fantastic job in his past roles. I think he is maybe a safe pair of hands that people are looking for. Outside of the chaos of the Tory party. So, we're going to get so much more of this as the general election approaches. And I think this particular ad campaign probably should be and will be forgotten.
Well, but everyone's painted him and he's painted himself as somebody with integrity and everything else like that. If he carries on like that, Anna McGovern, what do you think? I mean, it sounds to me like this is foolish, but what is your view?
No, absolutely. And it demonstrates exactly that he does lack integrity, as does the Labour Party. And, especially the Labour attack campaign on the Conservatives, they were doing exactly what they would be criticising the Conservatives of doing. And I think it demonstrates as well that this general election coming up is going to be one on pretty much a culture war and what is to be said that's the right thing at the time. And I think for Keir Starmer, it just demonstrates again that he's a complete hypocrite, and he'll chameleonize himself to sort of please just say the right thing rather than actually what he believes.
Well, Vince, do you think this will actually affect his poll lead? Do you think this is something that actually is quite significant?
I doubt at the moment that many people are aware of this campaign. I mean, it's a local government election. People don't take political advertising terribly seriously. And I only heard about it in the newspaper. I didn't see it. I think like many others. So I suspect it will have passed most people by. But I think why it's important is that it sets the tone for what is going to be a year, 18-month election campaign. I mean, the Labour Party currently are in the lead. Starmer's reputation, such as it is pretty good. And I don't think they help themselves by going down this particular road, and they've got time to change it.
Belinda?
I'm actually grateful to Keir, in a way, for highlighting the Conservative record on law and order. I mean, it has been appalling. Less than 7% of burglaries end up with the offender being charged. 5% for theft. 1% of car theft ends up with the offender being charged. It's not a great record for the Tories. So thank you, Keir, for that. He's doing what an opposition should do, but it has spun the spotlight directly on him, and I don't see any evidence of him being tough on law and order or crime in his past career. So I think as long as the Tories are doing badly, Keir has a chance to gain the keys to Westminster, but it does depend on the Tories. I don't think people will be voting for Labour because they trust them to be tough on law and order as much as just not voting for the Tories because they don't seem to be any good either.
Well,
I say a plague on both their houses, Nana.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much to Vince Cable. Thank you for joining me, former Liberal Democrat leader, Anna McGovern, political commentator, Belinda de Lucy, political commentator, and former Brexit Party MEP, and Sam Dowler, political commentator. Thank you for your thoughts on that one.